Hey all, it's David Ducker coming back at you, and today we're going to be talking about Return of the runefangs, episode 15. So they're leaving Heideck and arriving finally in Grenzstadt. So the battle, the siege of Heideck had just ended. Donnie Orr is trudging back in, carrying Cecilia Wahlberg in his arms. He'd been possessed by a demon. She rescued him from the plight that the demon had placed him into. But in doing so, she just passed out, dead cold. You can see her portrait on the Return of the Runefangs Facebook group. But he did manage to trudge her up to the Stallion Gate. And then, just as he's arriving at the guards and they're asking, who goes there? And then he just collapses on top of her. Because he was completely exhausted and possessed by a demon. And she was, also, as I said, exhausted. She'd been struck by lightning earlier, so she's not doing too good either. But that's what happens when you engage in battle against Clan Bloodaxe. So they were both taken back up to the little shrine of Verena up in that tower. This tower, the lower section, just that shrine, had miraculously been preserved. When the upper section exploded, when the demon manifested, just a small portion of the ceiling of this shrine was destroyed. But Donnie Orr wakes up there in the shrine once again. It's been converted basically into a hospital because there's so many wounded from the battle. So actually, when he awakens, actually, the Baron of Heideck is there, Baron Siegfried, and he kind of interrogates him because Agatha and Cecilia had noticed that he had some illusions cast on himself, and that he had the scroll, which is actually a sword disguised, again, through shadow magic. So they were suspicious. They didn't get a chance to ask him about it before, because Cecilia was so weak, and because Agatha is so meek. The weak and the meek tag team forever. But now, not only is the Baron have time to deal with this, but now they know he just summoned a demon, by accident probably, but still he summoned a demon, and that's not cool. That endangers the whole city. Now on the other hand, he did rescue Agatha, the Baron's daughter. So that was a nice extra dimension as he's trying to interrogate him. But Donnie came back and he actually told the Baron, yes, I admit I am cast under an illusion, and you must not reveal my true powers to anyone, for I am a witch hunter, and I am actually in search of a black magician, of an apostate sorcerer. So he manages to convince Baron Siegfried that this, he's actually this very important member of the Witch Hunters, which is a very highly regarded organization of the Inquisition. You don't mess with them. So actually, the Baron starts to get worried. He's like, you mean in Heideck? There's an apostate in Heideck? But Donnie's like, no, not in Heideck, but my companions are going to lead me to the black magician that I seek. But you must not speak of this, for they do not even know who I truly am. So he really manages to impress the Baron, and his daughters were there as well for this. So they, of course, return all his gear back to him, and they promise to keep it a secret. And as far as they're concerned, he's just a squire. And speaking of a squire, he is, of course, the squire to Gregor Ullman, the Pegasus Knight. And just as the battle's ending, Sir Gregor actually flies in on his Pegasus, leading a whole wing of Pegasus Knights, just in time to miss the battle. So he's so heartbroken that he missed the battle. He's so upset about it. But he rejoins with Sir Blaine, Sir Ulrich, and he comes in. He explains to them that after he was chased off by the Bat Riders, he actually flew back to Averheim to get reinforcements, and now he's arrived with them just in time to miss the battle. So he has returned to the group though, and they're kind of disappointed in him. Of course, the Knights of the Black Bear are laughing. There's a huge rivalry between the Pegasus Knights, the Order of Bellerothon, and the Order of the Black Bear. Just one is very dainty and kind of prissy, and they fight with bows and spears, whereas the Order of the Black Bear is all very manly, very hardy, and they all grow beards, and they all swing axes, and they're mostly bastards, whereas the Order of Bellerothon really try to be the most noble of noble orders. There's also some rivalry because the Pegasus Knights are more secular. They're allowed to get married and inherit titles, whereas the Order of the Black Bear are not. They can't get married, can't hold land. So that's another point of contention. They have different levels of seriousness in their orders. But he integrates with them, and there's a big victory celebration. It's a big feast. So Baron Siegfried is there, and Agatha and Cecilia, Jacob von Zeitler, Johannes Baer, of course Sir Blaine and Sir Ulrich are there. Buck Salder is there. He also rode in the battle, and acquitted himself quite well with his Veldegudex. And fortunately, Sir Blaine's Squire Pava did recover from his injuries, so he's able to participate somewhat in the feasting. Donnie, of course, returns meekly to Sir Gregor's side, no one the wiser that he's been anything but comatose this whole time. So we're having a lot of fun with Donnie. That's Josh's character. So Josh is, we're doing some side scenes the other players can see, but their characters don't know about. So there is a little bit of meta teasing there, but also Josh and I are doing a lot of stuff via notes and emails. So there's this great layering of the players. Characters don't know very much, and then the players do know more than their characters. But then there's a whole other layer that only Josh and I are aware of. So that's been a lot of fun for Josh, for myself. I'm trying to get his character's true motives and his true history revealed slowly and really building it up. But they do have this big victory celebration. I don't believe anything of note happened at the celebration. Though Sir Blaine did approach Baron Siegfried, but supporting his crusade against the vampire counts. And Baron Siegfried very bluntly told him, I'm only committed to what my countess has committed me to. So he very bluntly told him, no, I'm not helping you. You can talk to my boss, the countess, and then maybe we'll think about it. But I am committed elsewhere. Also, Sir Blaine had noticed that the military forces in Heideck were quite a bit larger than he expected, as if they'd been gathering their troops even before the orcs arrived. So either they had forewarning, or they're planning some kind of military venture that Sir Blaine doesn't know about. So that was a nice little scene. He also talked to the Baron's son, Marcus. So they had a nice little scene. Marcus was a little more sympathetic, because Marcus has rode into battle with Blaine, not at this battle, they were in separate areas, but previously Marcus had gone north and fought alongside Sir Blaine against the vampire counts in some smaller actions. Not a full crusade, but so he had a little bit more sympathy, but ultimately the same kind of decision as his father, that he was already committed, and Heideck's forces are already committed to something, which he wouldn't discuss. So again, Sir Blaine's getting very suspicious now. So after they had the big victory celebration, we went through the next morning. Donnie did some sneaking around in the city itself, which I probably won't reveal here because the players might watch this and they don't know yet. Even though we're on session 17 now, coming up on 18, they probably won't find out about this for a while. But Donnie did some good aside scenes while everybody else is engaging in the noble stuff. He snuck away into the slums to get some sneak on. But basically the party then left Heideck, so we had to narrate the journey along the old dwarf road, this shimmering ribbon of marble against the vast, empty plains of Averland. It was still overcast. It wasn't raining any longer. Still very overcast. I'm really enjoying the weather in the game because our last game was set in a desert, and there's like sunny or there's sandy weather. That's about it. There's not a whole lot to do in the desert with the weather. So I'm really enjoying it. We get mist and fog and rain, and there's mud on the ground, or if it's dry for a while, there's dust on the ground, or whatever there is. So I'm really enjoying that aspect of the game. We probably won't get through to snow. The campaign won't last that long. But I digress. So they proceed down south, the Old Dwarf Road. Check out the map on our Facebook group, Return the Runefangs. And eventually they finally come through to Grenzstadt. Grenzstadt being the forge of the Empire, where the Empire was founded 2,000 years ago by Sigmar in his battle against the orc hordes of the Black Mountains. So they see there, the river coming through, this bridge coming into the city, and the city is flanked by two mountains. At the base of one mountain, there's a castle, and there's this great wall stretching across the valley. And next to the castle, there's this waterfall cascading down. I really enjoyed the geography of Grenzstadt. It's all homebrew. I don't know what it looks like officially. I don't know if there's an official map. I did look for one, but I couldn't find one. But they came through to Grenzstadt. They came right through to the castle. It was coming up on evening, and they made it just in time for dinner, basically. So they went from a feast and then a day of travel, and then into another dinner with some more barons. And they were greeted by Baron Christoph Rectofe. Of course, Gregor Omen accompanied them, as his quest has always been since they met him to come here and go into the mountains and slay Manticore and impress his lady love, Elisabetta, the Baron's older sister. And we finally get to meet Elisabetta. Gregor's been just talking about her forever, about how beautiful she is and how delicate and what a flower of womanhood she is. So we finally get to meet her. And she's like this big, burly dame, and she's got a sword strapped on. She's got a big scar on her face. So it's a lot different than Gregor had been describing her. But Gregor came in and he grabbed her hand and knelt at her feet and sort of reciting poetry about how he never had an hour pass since he had not thought of her beauty, and she was clearly very embarrassed as she was like rolling her eyes, and she's like, "Oh, not this guy again." So though Gregor has kind of been set up as something of a fool in many ways, but a very entertaining and at times very sympathetic character as well. But anyway, Baron Christoph came in and said hi to everyone. He's again another very young Baron. He's only about 14. Now he is married though. He's married to the Countess of Averland's sister, Evelyn, formerly. Actually, I'm not sure if I ever assigned a maiden name to them. That should be rectified at some point, but no one has asked yet, and I try to avoid the question. But anyway, the Countess's sister Evelyn, now Evelyn Rectofe, she's probably in her mid-40s, and she's married to this 14-year-old. but it was a very, very political marriage, because the Baron's father was killed by mandicores, which is why he has this big bounty placed on them, on manticore tails. And the other knights and nobles were trying to move in on the barony, and to secure his political foothold, he married the Countess's sister, thus securing alliance with House Nestel. So even though there's a huge age difference, it was a very important marriage politically. So he's 14. He's very excited to see some knights he's heard of. He's heard of Sir Blaine, this famous vampire hunter. He's heard of Sir Ulrich, a tournament champion in Nuln. The spring tournament is a huge tournament every year. So he's very excited to see them. They all come in to dinner. There's also at the dinner Verena Sachs, the Archmage of Grenzstadt. She's a beast mage of the Amber Order, so a beast mistress. And at the low table, there's I believe it's Erika Frenzel, is the Castellan of Grenzstadt. He's not a knight though, so he has to eat at the low table with Buck Salder. And actually, they were really getting along, famously. So they were drinking together, and later, I think they were singing together. So they're really getting along. There are, of course, rumors that Eric Frenzel used to be a mercenary, a sellsword, in the land of the Border Princes. And there's also fairly well known that he is the paramour of the Archmage of Verena Sachs. So, theoretically, technically, mages in my version of Warhammer are supposed to have vows of celibacy, but it's fairly common for them to take paramours. They can't get married, obviously, and they're really not supposed to. In the case of male mages, they're not supposed to impregnate anyone. In the case of female mages, they're not supposed to get pregnant because of proof that they've broken their vows. But there are ways around this, just through stealth and careful planning or magic or what have you. But anyway, they come in, and Sir Blaine had this very, very good session of role playing with the Baroness Rectofe, and he's asking her to commit her forces to his crusade. And she comes in, and instead of being really blunt like Baron Siegfried was, she comes in. And she's talking to him about how, you can't expect someone to help you unless you show commitment to them, that you trust them, that you're an ally of them. So, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It might so happen that there are battles to be fought here in the south that we would need your help with. And by helping us today, you could guarantee that we'll help you tomorrow. So she was more subtle about it than that, but it takes a while to say anything that subtly. So really good role play scene, and she was really kind of like convincing Blaine. He's like, yeah, maybe we need to invest in help for the future instead of just begging help whenever we desperately need it. Maybe we should invest. So she really seemed to get him thinking about that. So great session of role playing between the two. And great contrast against the other Baron, against Siegfried. He was so blunt and so uncomfortable with politics. He was a real warrior. And here's someone who's, she got, 4 or 5 ranks in diplomacy. So, very different conversation. And while they're talking, Ulrich was entertaining the young Baron, telling him stories about the tournament and about their adventures since they left Nuln, about the Siege of Heideck, which they're pretty much just telling Grenzstadt about now. So in the middle of all of this, and of course Donnie is there as the cupbearer of Gregor Ullman, which was fun too. I don't think he got any really good role playing at that point, but he's there as the cupbearer since he's a squire. But in the middle of dinner, like the door is kicked open, and this party comes striding in, and the Baroness just scowls and looks over at them, and everybody goes really quiet. It's really awkward. As this large group comes in, they're all dressed in like white and blue and gold, and they come in, and at the head of the party is a man wearing the tabard of the Order of the Blazing Sun, and he announces, the heralds announce him as the Grand Master of the Order of the Blazing Sun, Grandmaster Franz Child. Yeah, Franz Child. And he comes in, and he looks around. He's got this disgusted look on his face, and he starts ranting about how, why were we not invited to dinner? Why do you start dining without us? Are we not noble? Do we not count among our ranks the Baron's own sister, who's a light mage of the Light Order, which is always fun that they name those both the same thing. But anyway, he has this big rant, and with him is also actually the Grand Master of the Order of Bellerothon, and a high-ranking priestess of Shalia as well. So he makes this big scene, and he forces them to clear space at the table for all of them, and they're like having to push people down to the lower tables and like interrupt their meal, like leave your meal there, and someone else has to take your seat. Excuse me. So it's he's just being a complete ass to everyone, and he comes in. He sits down next to Sir Blaine, and he starts talking to Sir Blaine about the crusade, and he publicly commits the Order of the Blazing Sun to help him, and all of the Knights of the Blazing Sun will head north and scourge vampires from the Empire, and any true man, true warrior would do the same. So Sir Blaine finally has someone other than House Berengar who's going to help him, but the guy who's helping him is a complete ass, and he's kind of using it as this political tool almost to assert authority and to get this holier-than-thou attitude on against everyone else who's there. So that was a lot of fun. We also got actually, by the way, the Grand Master there, Franz Child, was played by James. That's his new character. So James did a very good job with that, and a very good job role-playing with Kevin, the player of Sir Blaine. But over the other end of the table, the Grand Master, Oren Neville Smythe, 1 XP if you tell me where I stole that name from. Maybe 2 XP, that's a little obscure. But I stole a whole name. So Grand Master Oren Neville Smythe, the Grand Master of the Order of Bellerothon, is talking with Sir Gregor Ullman, one of the members of the Order of Bellerothon. So now they're both played by me, so I'm like talking to myself. She pulled it off pretty good. I don't like to do that because it's just boring for the players sometimes if they're not engaged directly. But in this case, Josh, who's playing Donior, is a cupbearer of Sir Gregor. So he's like watching these two characters talk to each other, and he's just kind of throwing these little jabs to shift the conversation the way he wants it. So it's a really interesting role-playing, little piece of role-playing there. Just the way that Josh was kind of needling it, just a word here or a word there. Really, really interesting that he can stay out of the conversation but completely control it. So anyway, the dinner pretty shortly concluded, though, as this rude interruption spoiled many people's appetites, and the Baroness stormed off. She dragged the Baron Christoph with her, and everyone kind of filed out. And that's when Buck and Eric started like singing because they're starting to get a little drunk, and as is the wont of Buck's altar. But they're starting to get a little bit drunk, and they start singing. But as they're leaving, Ulrich actually went up to the priestess of Shalia, as Shalia is the goddess of healing, and they have this little exchange, and she she's heard of him. He's the Veiled Knight. He wears a veil because his face is destroyed by a lance thrust in a tournament a couple of years ago, 1 year ago actually. And she says she's heard about his mark, his scar, and she starts telling him about how Shelley views scars as penance for ill deeds, but his is so much more severe, and he's had to carry it in the open where many can hide their scars. And she says, maybe Shelley could judge and see if you've borne this penance long enough to remove it. So she fills him with all this hope that he can be healed of this wound that he's had to walk around with on his face. He's trying to hide with a veil. So they have a nice little exchange, and but she leaves pretty shortly, and he kind of resolves he's going to go check out the Temple of Shelley here in Grenzstadt. So that was pretty much the end of episode 15. So tune in shortly for episode 16 when our heroes set out for the Black Mountains. Hopefully. You'll have to tune in to see if that's actually accurate. And so will Charles. Cheers.